The gentleman there, your expert. Do you know the protocols, don't you? Mr. Mnis, and all of you, I'm asking you. Do you know the protocols about a presumptive witness? It's not supposed to be in court. Story.
A presumptive witness?
Are you not going to call him as a witness?
We will, man.
That's it. So I'm saying he can't sit in court in terms of the law. You know that.
Even if he's an expert, my lord. And when other...
No, he's a witness in a criminal trial.
Yes.
Am I correct, Mr. Baloi? Hey,
well, my experience has been that expert witnesses do sit next to counsel to guide them in cross-examination. So an exception is made regarding...
Can you give me that decision? Because yes. I'm not aware of it.
As I say, in practice, you know, because there is a whole purpose of having an expert to assist you to cross-examine.
But they've consulted, that's the point. Haven't they consulted?
Yes. They have, Manot.
Hey, let's check that point.
Yes.
What's your view, Mr. Mngomezulu? An expert sits in court and listens to the evidence, and thereafter he comes and gives evidence.
That's correct, man.
Mr.
I am of the same view, my lord. I've seen that happening in other cases, but I'm not aware of the authority at the moment.
You don't have the authority?
Yes.
I don't think you'll find any. Yes, Mr.
Yes, I'm also not aware of the authority, but I think it should be there. But in practice, and convention has it that when...
Yeah, okay, fine. Yes, Mr.
Thank you, my lord. I've seen it in practice. It's happening.
You don't have any authority?
I don't have any authority on that. I don't have any authority on that.
You can take it from me. There's no authority like that. But you know what? Because you are agreeing, the state and the defense are agreeing to that, I'll let it pass. So you can sit, sir. Hello? They say you can sit next to your counsel or your counsels, and you can advise them as the trial goes on. That's what you're saying. Okay, fine. Let's start then. Yes, Mr. Mngomezulu, then. Best to start.
Yeah, best to start. Thank you, man. In your evidence, you testified that you received a call from Captain Bentley.
Captain Bentley, yes.
Yes. What time did you receive that call?
I cannot recall the exact time, but it was around 10 when I received the call.
Okay, when you received that call, where were you exactly?
I was at the office at the lab.
Sorry?
I was at the office at the lab in Silverton.
And where was Captain Bentley at that time when you called?
When he called me, he was at the crime scene.
So upon your arrival, you said you are not sure about the time, but it was after 11.
That's correct, my lord.
Did you find Bentley or Captain Bentley at the crime scene upon your arrival?
That's correct, my lord. I found Captain Bentley. He was from the crime scene management. He was busy. They were busy processing the crime scene. So I found him. I only informed him that I have arrived. I'm there. But they were busy processing inside. So I waited outside for them.
So upon your arrival, how many members of the task team were there, including Captain Bentley, members of the SAPS that were there on the 27th of October 2014? How many people were there? Precisely the police.
My lord, there was a lot of police officers there at the scene, but I went to Captain Bentley because he's the one who called me, and he was with some of his team members. I don't know how many team members were there, but I recall Lieutenant Colonel Nkandla was there.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interfere.
Yes.
Mr. Mngomezulu, you're saying on the 27th?
On the 27th, that is the day.
On the 27th?
That's correct.
Not on the 26th?
Not on the 26th. Okay. According to the evidence.
Because he says he arrived at about 10, 11. On which date?
On Monday, the 27th.
Okay, fine. All right. Thanks. Sorry.
Again, Africa, about 10, 11, one day 27.
All right. Still there with Captain Bentley. You interacted with him. He informed you. What did he tell you?
When I arrived, they were still busy processing the crime scene. They were busy inside. I only informed him that I have arrived. I'm here. I'll wait for them to finish processing, then I'll go in.
You never had any discussion with him, except to report to him that you have just arrived?
I never had any discussion with him when I arrived, but I started talking to them when they called me so that I can come in and start processing the scene with them.
Are you certain, sir, that there's nothing to discuss with him?
Discuss with them? I'm certain, my lord.
Captain Bentley, are you certain?
I'm certain, my lord. I didn't discuss anything with him.
All right. You mentioned two officers, I believe it's Ntini and you said
I was with Captain Ntini and Makati from my office. Yes.
All right. So they also assisted you in the reconstruction of the crime scene?
That is correct, my lord.
Now, who was the lead reconstructor? Was it you?
That's correct, my lord.
But were there any positive or active participation of Ntini and Makati? Was there any active participation? Was there any active role they played during the reconstructing of the crime scene?
My lord, I did the reconstruction of the scene, and what they were doing is they were assisting me. If I have to make measurements, if I need anything, I'll ask them to assist me there.
Are you aware maybe if they've made statements regarding their participation on the 27th of October 2014? Did they make any statements regarding their involvement on that day?
No, my lord, they didn't make statement. I'm the one who made the statement.
All right. Now, you were called in, you started to process the crime scene. That's when you observed the damage on the door of, on the entrance door of the house and on the floor, correct?
Can you rephrase the question?
Thank you. I'm saying during the processing of the crime scene or reconstructing the crime scene, you observed the damage from the door, the entrance door in the kitchen, and the damage on the floor.
That is correct, my lord.
Prior to the processing, did you ask questions from any person who was around or who was in the house? Did you ask any questions?
My lord, on my arrival, I waited for them and then Captain Bentley called me, said, no, you can come and assist. But the first thing that they asked me, they said they've discovered 2 bullets in the house, but they can only see the bullet damages on the door. They don't know where the first bullet hit. I was standing in front of the entrance.
All right. So you did not see those bullets on your arrival on the 27th?
I did not see them on my arrival.
Yes.
My lord, when I get, as I'm explaining, when I get to the crime scene, when I'm standing in front of the entrance door, that's when they told me that they have discovered, they recovered the bullet and the fragments. They show that it's 2 shots fired, but they can only see 1 bullet damage on the door. But from where I was standing, I could see, where I was standing on the entrance, I could see the bullet damage on the tile, or the bullet defect on the tile. Then I pointed to them that that's one of the bullet marks that I can see in the house. Then it's 2 shots. I've showed them that one and the one on the door that they showed me.
But my worry first say it's about the evidence you're giving now. It's a hearsay evidence. You were told. And I was told that that evidence has been provisionally admitted on the basis that, on the reasons that Captain Bentley will be called to confirm that. But my worry is that that evidence is hearsay. But let's move on. So, when you observed that this there's a damage on the floor and damage on at the door, that's where the damage A1 is the damage in the door, and A2 is the damage on the floor, correct?
That is correct, my lord.
So have you measured the distance between A1 and A2?
Between A1 and A2?
Yeah. Where the damage on the door, the distance from where there was a damage at the door and the damage on the floor.
My lord, I have measured the distance from A2 to the door, not to the damage on the door, but to the door.
Yes, to the door. Yes. Will I be correct to say that that distance, you said it's 1.19?
I can't recall, it was 1 point. That is correct, my lord.
So one may safely conclude and say the shooting happened in the kitchen.
That is correct, my lord.
All right. It's your evidence that according to your observation, the damage on the floor was fired on the 90 degrees, correct?
Yes, my lord, I said it was fired at an angle of approximately 90 degrees.
But will you be able to say, if you are able to say it, if you are not, but I will expect that from you as an expert. If it was fired at the approximately 90 degrees, the distance, I believe you call it the muzzle, the last part of the firearm.
That's correct, the muzzle of the firearm, yes.
Can you estimate the distance between from the muzzle of the firearm and to the damage on the floor. At what distance was that shot?
My lord, it's not possible to determine the distance from the muzzle to the floor.
So, but you can't even say it was a close range shot that was fired.
My lord, it was definitely not a close range to the ground. When you do the distance determination is done based on the spreading of your the bent and partially bent propellant powder that comes from the muzzle of a firearm. If you find it around the area of the entrance wound or entrance wound, you can be able to look at the pattern, you measure the pattern, and that pattern, you conduct the test, it can give you the distance, how far the firearm was. But that can only be done within the distance of a meter, not more than a meter.
Yeah. But the equipment that you were using to process the crime scene, you had the full equipment, including equipment to determine whether there is a prime residue on the surface or on the body of the person that was shot. You had that equipment.
My lord, we don't do primer residue tests. It's done by LCRC or crime scene management. They are the ones who are taking the primer residue test. And what I want to explain is there's a difference between propellant powder and primer. So those things are not the same thing. If you do the primer residue test, the primer is when you fire a shot, the firing pin of the firearm strikes the primer. That primer ignites, it acts like a matches, whereby it will create flame that will ignite the propellant powder. And after burning that thing, the ashes that comes from that primer are the ones that we'll be looking at to check if there's any primer residue on it. And then for a distance, we're using the unbent and partially bent propellant powder that comes from the muzzle of the firearm. If a shot is fired, not all the powder that is inside the cartridge will be completely bent. Some of it won't bend, but it will be pushed by the gas that comes from the burning ones. So when it exits, it can only travel for about a meter.
Yes.
Then we use that for distance determination.
So, in other words, any evidence relating to the test on a primer residue will be given by the officers from the LCR.
Well, the LCRC and crime scene management, they will only collect it on the hands if they need to collect them, maybe the suspect or the victim or the witnesses, and then they send it to crime to the lab to scientific analysis for analysis so that they can check if there's any presence of primer on the equipment that they use to collect it.
So when you departed the crime scene on the 27th of October 2014, you did not leave with any exhibits?
No, my lord, we don't collect any exhibits from the crime scene.
Yes. Okay, just for interest's sake, I'll ask you why you are not supposed to take the exhibits from the crime scene, if I may ask.
Why am I not supposed to take?
As ballistic experts, if there are exhibits, why are you not allowed to take them? Because there's a question that I'll ask at a later stage which might be relevant and relate to the same question.
My lord, if I attend the crime scene, I'll attend the crime scene to conduct the reconstruction of the crime scene or crime scene examination. And if LCRC is at the crime scene, their mandate is to document the crime scene and collect all the evidence from the crime scene and send it to the lab for analysis.
So whether the crime scene was contaminated, terminated or whatever way, that's not your duty to give evidence on such. Say for instance, the crime scene has been contaminated, all right? There were no tapes when you arrived there. Will you be able to give evidence in court that this crime scene was contaminated? Is it your duty?
My lord, when we say the crime scene was contaminated, it depends on what are we referring to.
Yes.
If we say the crime scene was contaminated, how contaminated was it?
Yes, then I'm getting there. Say for instance, I'm giving you an example. If blood was removed or was wiped from the floor, are we not talking about contamination of the crime scene?
If blood was removed or wiped from the crime scene
by maybe the member of the family or any other person, is that not contamination?
That might be contamination in a way, but depends on what examination are you doing. If I'm doing a reconstruction of the crime scene and I would expect blood to be there, I'll write it on my report that based on the injuries sustained, I would expect blood to be on this. If the blood was, then I wouldn't say that blood, but I would only say that I would expect blood to be on the scene.
So from what I'm going to put to you, I'm subject to correction. But there's evidence that in this court that there was a lady, Mapiri, who was cleaning the house after the incident of shooting. Is that not contamination?
My Lord, it can be contamination, but what we're looking at is contamination. Based on which evidence are we looking at?
My question is very simple. And I want you to be specific and precise when you give me this answer. If you say it can be contamination, you are misleading me. My question is, there's evidence before this court that there's a certain lady, Mapiri, who was cleaning the house after the incident. So is that not contamination? Is that not removal of the evidence?
I don't know whether it's correct to put it as high as that she was cleaning the house after the incident.
And when she was clearing the table.
Yes, and there was also water there in the passage.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm subject to correction, because I was not there when she was giving evidence. But the fact that there are certain things that she did after the incident of shooting, is that not contamination?
That's why, my Lord, I said it might be contamination, but if he removed some of the object maybe from the crime scene, those doesn't affect my findings. When I do my reconstruction, all the relevant evidence that was on the scene, I found it there. The position of the bullet was there, the bullet holes was there, and I could find all those things.
Okay, let me put it this way. Upon your arrival or during the processing of the crime scene, did you see any blood on the floor?
So I did find blood on the scene, and it was in the sitting room or the living room there.
So there was no blood in the kitchen?
There was no blood in the kitchen.
So let's move on. The tins or the containers of alcohol, did you find them on the table or around in the house? Did you find the empty tins of alcohol?
My Lord, I cannot say they were there or they were not there. I didn't check them, I didn't look for them, because they are not ballistic related evidence. So I only look at ballistic related evidence on the crime scene.
All right. Now let's get into the lead. You mentioned that there was a lead that was around the hole or the damage on the floor. If I'm quoting you correctly, was there any lead, umtofi, around?
My Lord, there was lead, bullet lead. Because when you look at that damage on the floor,
yes,
it's almost in a circular shape.
Yes.
And what happened is the bullet that were used are the what we call the CMJ bullets. CMJ bullet. Now the CMJ bullet is softer than the tire. The shot fired in a 90 degree, what will happen? It will be that what we call the terminal ballistics, where you have effect of the bullet on the target and vice versa, the effect of the target on your bullet. Now in this instance, because your bullet is softer than the target, your bullet fragmented. So the lead particles were found around the impact of the bullet, where the bullet has hit. And some of the fragments were dispersed to different directions.
So it is further evidence that if there was a person next to the place next to the hole where a fire was shot, that person is likely to be injured by the...
My Lord, I said because it hits at an angle of around 90 degrees, your bullet will hit and it will fragment. Some of the lead fragments will be dispersed to any direction. Whoever will be around that area,
yes,
there's a possibility that they will be hit by those fragments of the bullet.
So there's evidence that there was a lady that was injured, Zandile Kumalo, was injured as a result of the fragmentation of the bullet.
That is correct, my Lord. If she was hit by those, it means that she was within that vicinity when the shot was fired, when that bullet hits the tire.
All right. Now let's get into you went to, the following day, you went to Jimiston government mortuary.
That's correct, my Lord. The next day I attended the post-mortem.
So it's your evidence that you took measurements from the front part of the body and the back part of the body.
That is correct, my lord. I did that.
So your evidence is that from the sole of the deceased, measuring from front, you came up with 1.34 meters. Is that correct?
That is correct, my lord. What I did, I've measured the entrance wound which was on the chest.
Yes.
From the wound downwards to the floor or to the ground, and it was 1.34, approximately 1.34 meters.
Correct.
And then I've measured the exit wound at the back, which was a little bit lower than that, which was of 1.26 meters to the ground.